Apollo's Cold War. And a review of Ugra Media's Cold War Germany map by a real Swede. The real Cold War raged from 1947 to December 91, and Ugra Media chose to set their map in the blistering 80s. For Apollo's part, the 80s was the time I discovered my brother's porn stash, but also the time I got very interested in space and aviation. My father was a reserve officer in the Air Force, my brothers were junior air cadets, and my granddad had covertly worked as a signal operator on a spy plane. More about him later. I was born in 1972, so the Cold War was raging and caused me some trauma. Well, yes, no. The trauma was more of outrageous pastel colors, enormous shoulder pads, Chernobyl, the looming all-out nuclear war, and AIDS. Nothing worse than that. But we had it kind of peaceful, except for air raid warning tests every now and then, and the abundant shelters all over, reminding you how to take cover from a nuclear blast and eventual fall down. Well, besides the ongoing fall down from Chernobyl, of course. Ironically, the raid shelters themselves also provided their own radiation, since the blue aerated concrete they were built of emitted alpha and gamma particles for our amusement. But you know, great times, great times. We also got extra doomsday survival tips from contemporary pop music like Frankie Goes to Hollywood. I was in the junior air cadet as a youngster, and there we got to learn a bunch of good stuff for kids. Responders first aid, how to handle and shoot firearms, and how to detect radiation fallout. Years passed and my haircut went from microphone head to a flat top, and not long after I graduated as Air Surveillance Second Lieutenant in Swedish Armed Forces. Suddenly and coincidentally, I was at the command center that would trigger the going to shelter alarm I feared as a kid. I could see the very air raid button for my hometown, trying my best not to push it just for fun. I became a fighter controller and learned how to control the fighter jocks by the same guys that worked in the Cold War. My instructors and colleagues had led the intercepts controlling development of the epic JA-37 Viggen, and also were the same guys who made numerous SR-71 Blackbird head-on intercepts. Two out of two successful stern intercepts made on an operational SR-71 was made by these guys. It was the famous rescue of the SR-71 that suffered an engine failure while spy planing over the Baltic Sea east of Gotland. The pilots received medals and honors, but yeah, they just did what the controller told them to do. So, nah, I'm not secondary bitter. Not at all. My unit was the Epic Rockan, or Stingray in English, a CRC, Command and Reporting Center. Our Casa Doom was blasted into the mountainside and was like a little community with all commodities you can ask for. A 4-story building underground, not built by aerated concrete, safe from nuclear blasts and sunburns. This CRC was one of the hottest places in the Cold War for air operations. The equipment was in most part the same from the start all through the 80s to when I started to work the controls. The radar scope was of a PPI, Planned Position Indicator, a classic radar that flashed as it painted the map for us operators. The radar swept around and left a blip where the echo or target was, and the next time the radar swept by, the blip had moved, making a trail of ever-diminishing blips. The screen size was 12 inches, measured from the root. For your metric guys and needy receivers out there, that is in centimeters way too small. But it was enough to handle my fighters in supersonic intercepts. We had 4 different scales, 1, 2, 3 and 400 kilometers across the screen. We also had digital fighter communication, styrdata, that could send track information, commands and such to our fighters. Cool stuff that worked well with the Draken and the fighter version of Viggen since the 1950s. This unique feature meant that you could conduct a complete mission without any verbal communication. The Draken system was based on a relative position of the tracking symbols, while the Viggen used geometric-based data since it had a small onboard computer. The system was able to direct where the onboard radar should look, making a lock-on easier, or just guide the fighters radar silent to their targets, not showing up on any radar warning receivers at all. Good shit. I once sent 2 round areas and a corridor to my pilot buddy flying a GA-37 Viggen. Yes, the art looked like an erect penis on his tactical indicator. We could track 80 targets simultaneously, and the Sensor 932E computer had an impressive memory capability of 256 chord, like 32-bit, which translates to 4 bytes. This was the stuff we used during the Cold War. It worked great, well, if you didn't write some wacky commands which could freeze up the whole system, or if you slammed the ops room door too hard. Otherwise, epic. The orange theme I sometimes have in my Lot 80C streams is to mimic the screens I work with. Not very good, but a slight reminder of what it was like. I also sampled how our radios sounded like. I miss those days. Well, let's return to the Cold War map. Is it any good? Yeah. By now you all must know that it is very good. And it hopefully puts a new standard to maps in DCS. The details are stunningly well done. Even got German-speaking cows. Moo. If you haven't realized it yet, I will focus on the northern part of the map, since that's where I worked and have any clue what I'm talking about. Well, besides the place me and my Safir visited. Understandably, this northern part doesn't get as much love as the mother Deutschland. Well, more like the favorite cousin, not Denmark. I really like that the map includes a good deal of the Baltic Sea, well, up to Stockholm and including the Gotland island. Well, not really able for missions, but somewhat usable anyway. And thank you for the bases. Well, there's one base and 2 backup runways to another that is not included. But, Apollo, have you smoked cheese doodle weed? There are more than that. Nah, Ugra and Revinge is not their own bases. They are part of a road-based system for Sjöbo, or Björka. These road strips were not actively used during the 80s that the map depicts. The road-based system, Base 90, always had a hidden in the forest runway in the middle and then some public roads as spare runways. Kortbana, smalbana, or maybe even reservbana were different kind of roads used depending on plane, year and availability. The Ugra and Revinge was used in the 70s and prior to that. In our GCW map, the Revinge would be Björka Base B called Bertil, and the Ugra would be C, Caesar, following relevant naming. The F10 overlay map in the game is not Swedish, and the intel was not totally wrong, but not quite right either. The Sjöbo base is visible here. Didn't you include it because it was hard to pronounce? Sjöbo, Sjöbo. Well, in these parts it's called Sjöbo. Yes, the locals sounds like they have hit their head on a stone wall. The bases used during the 80s were F10 Ängelholm, not seen on the screen, F5 Ljungbyhed, Knislinge, Everöd, Sjöbo or Björka, and Sturup. The Baltic Sea is often referred to as the Sea of Peace, Fredens hav. The name is unfortunately not representative. The Cold War got off to a brisk start when the Soviet Union downed 3 airplanes over the Fredens hav in the early 1950s. Since the downing of the DC-3 and PBY Catalina, Sweden has had a 24/7 air surveillance and quick alert fighters at the ready. We call this operation FISK, means fish. Why? Well, we used our fighters as fish bait to lure out the Soviets over the Baltic Sea. The DC-3 was recovered 52 years later, and some mysteries about its demise were brought to daylight. Around the same time, our family found out by a journalist that our granddad worked as a signal operator for the intelligence community, FRA, Försvarets radioanstalt. He worked there covertly. For instance, he used a different surname than he used at home. He was supposed to fly with the crew in the Hugin SIG-INT DC-3 that was shot down, but he was on leave that week due to some domestic issue. He never said a word about this, his work or the trauma to any of us. Eric died inexplicably weeks after his retirement. Tougher times. Poor bastard. During my time as a fighter controller in the 90s, I did do a few intercepts over the Baltic Sea. Most of them were called flight plan controls. That means we went up to check that the aircraft was the same type written in the flight plan and such. Other intercepts were done on any interesting flight that showed up. The Russians was almost gone, so my tally was mostly Western players. A couple of Atlantics, the KC-135, the B-1Bs, Danish F-16A and German Tornadoes. Well, what I can remember anyways. Well, I did intercept with 2 J-35 Draken my brother flying a de Havilland DHC-2 Turbo Beaver. And yes, the interceptor said while leaving the slow bird, "Nice beaver." My Cold War ended in 2001 with the start of the everlasting peace. Okay, verdict from an almost Cold War Swede about the CWG map. On the plus side, the details of 80s Germany look really great. And I heard nothing but praise from my fellow gamers. Good job. On the negative side is that the road bases need improvement. And I would like to see more of these. No, this. So, 9 cheese doodles out of 10. Great work, Ugra. Alright, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See ya!